Welcome to the PeakDay podcast, where we talk about fertility and natural family planning with our friends. Today on the podcast, we're joined by Regina and Alfred Nicolini, one of CCL's newest teaching couples. Regina, originally from Santa Clara, California, has a background in accounting and recently stepped into full-time motherhood, while Alfred, who grew up on a dairy farm in Lodi, works in agriculture in California's Central Valley. The two met on Catholic Match in 2020, dated through the pandemic, and were married in 2023. After welcoming their daughter in 2024, they felt called to serve and became a certified CCL teaching couple in 2025. Now teaching live online classes and mentoring couples, they bring genuine enthusiasm to the mission of sharing natural family planning. Regina and Alfred, thank you so much for being my guest on the PeakDay podcast.
Oh, you're welcome.
You're welcome, Martha. Thank you for having us.
Let's kind of start at the beginning. You guys were both homeschooled. How do you think that might have shaped your faith life and maybe your openness to learning something like natural family planning?
Well, I mean, it was something important to my parents that we had a strong foundation in our faith life. So, they chose to homeschool us. We were homeschooled all the way through high school, all the five of us. As far as NFP, I saw that, I would read the magazine, I think when I was like a teenager or something. So it was something that I was familiar with too. And I knew that was something that we were going to do if I got married.
My parents, they actually took the class. It was after all five of us had been born, and they were wanting to conceive again. And so, we did have the magazines in the house, and I read a few of them, but not really many. I mean, it's just like, oh, okay, they're there, whatever. Mom and dad are part of that. So, another thing. That sort of shaped my impression of NFP, and so I sort of thought that it was more like a method for when you were trying to conceive or having problems. Like it wasn't something you would use normally every day in your marriage or something. Yeah.
You two met during the height of COVID lockdowns. So what kind of stands out the most from that kind of unique beginning for you as a couple?
I was encouraged a few months prior to that to be open to meeting someone online by a family friend at a trade show, actually. He had met someone online. But anyway, he sort of encouraged it, to be open to meeting someone anywhere. And she reached out to me, and I was like, oh, wow, here's a person that shares a lot of my values and what I'm looking for. So let's see where this goes. And so we messaging from there.
Yeah. And just similarly to what Alfred was saying, but I had, I was at home for a few months working from home. I had been working in the office and everything, so it was quite a change. And I was like, I'm not getting out and doing any young adult activities, any social activities, so why not try online dating again? Because it was so amazing to actually do something and meet someone in person. That's kind of what I remember. Yeah.
So when you look back on those, courtship days, those dates, how do you think that simple dating routine prepare you for marriage, and then having a shared mission like teaching natural family planning?
The simple things sort of kept us grounded and together, and at the same time, it helped us to start approaching harder conversations and topics and discussing what life would look like together and how that would, match with what we wanted out of life. We were 2 hours apart. I lived 2 hours away from her, so the only day I got to see her was on a Sunday. That was my day off. And so we always try to prioritize that. And so it sort of, it gave me the perspective of, prioritizing your spouse later on during your classes. That comes up in the theology and stuff, and just in a way, the whole method. And So it really helped with that. And I think sort of the ironically, I mean, like I know it's considered long distance dating. I didn't consider it so much long distance. I mean, there's people that have a plane flight or something, and that is way harder. But having the distance too, it sort of I think in a way it drew us together a little more because like we couldn't just drop around the corner and see each other at any given time. We had to be purposeful about it.
So you guys said you learned the method, the natural family planning through CCL, and you were engaged. What were your initial impressions? After just knowing a little bit about natural family planning, now that you got into the nuts and bolts of it, what were your impressions?
Well, for me, like I hadn't really like dug into it too much on my own. I mean, I knew like the general basics and I was trying to do a little bit of charting before, but I hadn't really like learned it. So actually going through the class, learning it and learning with Alfred was really good and really helpful and, eye opening definitely for me to be like, okay, this is actually how it works rather than.
I was thinking more along the lines of something that you wouldn't use every day of your life. It'd just be used every once in a while. But it was really cool. It was like, okay, I'm all in at this point.
How do you think learning natural family planning together strengthened your communication as a couple? Did you have a lot of good conversations on your walks?
We dated for, what was it, 2.5 years by the time we were engaged. So we'd had a lot of conversations already. And we did talk about, I made sure to bring it up early on. No, not that early on, but, NFP and, what you thought about it and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So we had talked about it before, but it was different to actually, be engaged and then have like more concrete conversations about, family planning type things.
Yeah. So and we got married in Regina's diocese, and so the diocese doesn't require a full class. But Regina was like, "We're not just doing an intro; we're doing the full class." I was like, "Okay, that works." Yeah. But going back just a little bit to that first conversation, when she first, she's like, "Well, if we get married, we're going to be using NFP, and that's what, we're just face children and all that." And I remember being like a little bit, I guess, surprised by that, and I was like, okay. But I was wise enough to shut my mouth and think I got to look into it a little bit more. But it did help us though, I mean, learning to discuss the mucus signs and stuff, and learning to talk about fertility. Overall, it's helped us greatly, and we've had conversations now that, looking back, you're kind of like, that would have been a harder conversation to have if we didn't have a good foundation to build on.
You two answered the call to teach NFP while you were adjusting to life with a newborn. Like, what inspired you?
Well, backing up, when we first took the class as an engaged couple, I thought, oh, maybe, years and years down the road, we could think of teaching. I don't know. It just like popped in my head, but I didn't say anything.
Yeah, like she said, she was like, "You interested?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm interested." And she's like, "Oh, okay."
It was kind of crazy with having a little baby, but it was something that wasn't like an immediate. We weren't starting to do the classes until I think it was January, so we had a few months and things to kind of consider it. We talked to the teaching couple who we took our class, or who was kind of our mentor couple when we did our class, and they were encouraging of us because they teach in the same diocese, and
they were really gracious and set up a time, and we talked, and they were very encouraging of it. And so we, after that, I was like, "Yeah, sign up. I'm all in. Let's try it."
So there is a teacher couple training process. Was there anything that surprised you about going through the process?
It was very interesting getting the background on a lot of things, and a very Stacy does a very good job in the time that she's allotted. It's not easy, I know. But it was very interesting. I sort of like the random facts and studies and stuff, so I got a lot out of that, and learning the whys and the behind the scenes sort of things. That was very interesting to me. And I mean, I I'm kind of more like I know people, or at least in my experience, people want really kind of to know why. You can tell them, do this, but most people want to know why they should do it. And so learning that was very important to me, and passing that along to our students has been very helpful.
So how do you find that balance as a young family and, being parents and teaching and your other commitments? Is that, like you said, Alfred, kind of it's teaching you to stretch a little bit?
But sometimes a balancing act. But at the end of the day, we feel that it's a blessing that we feel in our marriage, and we want to pass that along to others. And so
So you talked a little bit about feedback from your students. Have you learned anything from your students so far?
they can really ask some very good questions and help us to dig deep and find out where the answers are. But they've also taught us the vulnerability a little bit. Like it's if we're trying to teach them something that's very personal, we have to be personal as well. And some of the questions, it's kind of been surprising to I don't want to say surprising to get. I mean, you've got to expect it, but it's been very helpful for us in becoming better teachers as well.
Just from my perspective, I think sometimes the students will send us a chart, and I will look at it, and I'm trying to think, what's going on. And then when we actually talk to them, they're explaining some things that, it make the chart make more sense, and it just kind of learning to like listen rather than just deciding, oh, this is what I need to tell them sometimes. So just having that kind of patience. And
This year, Couple to Couple League is celebrating 55 years of teaching natural family planning to engaged and married couples. So, what maybe does that mean to you to be part of this legacy at such an early stage in your marriage?
We consider it a great honor. I had heard something the other day, and I was shocked by it, but it was true. I looked it up. So Pope Paul VI, when he wrote Humanae Vitae, that was his last encyclical that he wrote, and he had 10 more years left in his pontificate. So it was quite interesting that he let his pontificate be defined by such a document, such a revolutionary document at the time. It's a really great honor for us, and we really feel that we enjoy teaching, and we want to help bring that to as many couples as we can, and hopefully it touches some lives.
It is a blessing for me to work for this organization and to be able to go, every day and just share the blessings of natural family planning. Like so many people say, it is so much more than a family planning method. It's really a way of living your life.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty neat too, because just thinking about like my parents benefiting from it, and then our generation, and then our daughter, will teach her when she's older. Just kind of seeing that a number of generations benefiting from the mission of the organization. It's kind of neat to be able to be a part of it.
What would you say to other young couples who might feel called to teach but are hesitant to take that first step?
God can never be outdone in generosity, and so if you give Him time, He's going to double your time. So I would say just trust in God. If it's the right thing for you at that time, it will happen. If it's not, it's going to be postponed. At least in my experience, that's what I've seen.
We got good training as a teaching couple, and all the things that we need. If we have questions and everything, all the support we need. So it isn't like you're not doing it on your own. You're part of a, organization, a group, and a team, and you're all working together in a sense. So, it's not as hard as you would think, I guess. And yeah, I mean, if anyone wanted to, I would definitely encourage them to do it. It's been great for us. We've really enjoyed it so far.
Yeah.
Well, Couple League is blessed to have you in particular as a teaching couple. Thank you so much for answering that call. Our teaching couples are really the heart of our mission. So, yeah, and thank you for being on the PeakDay podcast. I appreciate it so much. It was wonderful to hear from you as a newly minted teaching couple. It's kind of exciting. I have a chance to interview a lot of teaching couples who've been doing it for several decades. So it's great to talk to a new teaching couple. So thank you.
You're welcome.